Okay, I think we should be live. Um, Hello, and welcome to the Small Talks with Nick Schamborski. Nick Schamborski is studying art to find tools of deconstruction. He is questioning the canon of images that surround us. In his practice, it is important to politicize the aesthetics to fight the normalization of violence in our environment and within the fine arts itself. He uses aesthetics that are visible to make hidden topics of social injustice transparent. In testing Trixi, the fictional app DealWithIt is tested in this film, which promises possible options for dealing with problematic monuments in public spaces. A historical disquisition on the colonial monument in Braunschweig, Brunswick, and suggestions for changes. My name is Sarai. I will be moderating this talk today. In the last 10 minutes of the talk, that we will have a space for an open discussion for any comments or questions you viewers may have. Hello, Nick. Welcome.
Hello, Sarai. Thank you so much for this very kind introduction, and also thank you so much for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to speak with you and also to speak about my work. I'm really yeah, it already when we spoke beforehand, it already raised a lot of questions in my head, and I think it's really nice to have this chance. And I'm also very happy for all of the people who are listening or viewing this video, because it's an honor to speak about my work, actually.
Thank you, Nick. I'm so happy to have the chance to talk to you more in depth about this video. It was such a joy to watch, and I really had so much food for thought afterwards. I think also throughout the film, there's such a great sense of humor, not only in the different app possibilities, but even in the approach of the video itself, positioning it like a YouTube review and in the app notifications and features. Why did you decide to have it as a YouTube review format?
First of all, in my artworks, or what really interests me, are kind of the visuals that always surround me. So I'm not so much interested in creating something completely new, but I'm much more interested in using the things that I have daily access or that I see very often. So that is how things like a review video really come into my mind, or advertisement, since these are things that I see very often. And so that is why it interested me. Another really important level is, I think it's very interesting how review videos, but also tutorials or similar things, they are somehow very, give me the opportunity to be somehow very didactic and very judgmental, because review videos are very judgmental, right? Like there's someone testing something and saying why it's bad or why it's good, why I should buy this phone or why I should buy this phone, right? So it's like really about being judgmental, which is sometimes not as accessible in the arts. But when I have the review video, I can be very free to be somehow judgmental. And talking about the topic we will be talking about, colonial memorials, it is very important to have a clear standing point and to be, yeah, judgmental.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I find it interesting what you say also about the visuals and wanting to use something that in a way already exists, because the um, the design of the Deal With It app was at the same time so familiar, but also your own. And how did you, what was it like designing the visual features of the app? Did it bring you to new perspectives or realizations on the apps we use regularly today?
It was very interesting on so many, because it's very crazy to design something out of nowhere, and at the same time, and of course, it was very important to make it very clear, relatable, or to relate it to apps that we use in the daily. Uh, that we use, but at the same time, I have all the freedom to do whatever I want, and it can be very different. And I think it changed a lot. That's also why I like in my practice also, for example, to do things with other people together or something, to create visuals, and then to think about the visuals that surround us. So it is. for example, a smartphone app in itself is already also very didactic because it really tells you what you can do or what you have to do. So it shows you the way and shows you what you need to do. And this was very interesting, for example. Another thing I could talk with you for ages about is the thing with a button. Why does an app, when I press something, it needs to give us a signal that the button is pressed, which is something which is related to older machines, but has nothing to do with smartphones. So it's something you have to animate. You have to animate that the button has been pressed, that you get a reaction. And I think that's very interesting because it's related to old machines, not to new phones, but it's very important that you have this reaction. Yeah, just one example.
Yeah, I really felt like watching your video, I realized this blind spot that I have, not thinking about app design, or when I'm opening YouTube or Instagram on my phone, that I just take it for granted how it looks like, and I'm not really seeing it anymore. And then seeing this kind of animation, seeing your film made me think like how you made it so immersive, entering this app and being in this app, and it was in that way quite reflective for me.
Also, just one little thing I want to ask. Also, what I added were many glitches. Sometimes it's loading and then it's stuck and then it loads again. So I thought these things are also very important because that's also what I experience very often when I am in this digital spheres. These glitches. I thought it's interesting that I animate glitches, which I don't necessarily have to animate, right? So
yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. It was really so natural to me, and I only noticed that actually in my second and third watch, that there were glitches, because it was again this blind spot. And also I found the warnings so wonderful, especially the image that we have on the screen now. Virtual changes may affect reality. And this resonated deeply with me, I think, because the whole video, it feels like a fantasy or like a strong wish, a strong want for this app that does not exist, to exist. And in a way, with this warning, I felt like you were saying to me a metaphor that art can affect life, and it does affect life. Where does this sentence, virtual changes may affect reality, come from? And what was your inspiration for it?
I think in a way, the sentence can be read from many perspectives, and I cannot name them all because many decisions that I made come more from questions than from really statements, even though they look like statements. And it's the same here because I think what you just said makes completely sense. Like, for example, art or applications or virtual impacts, they can have an actual impact. So virtual changes may affect reality, but it could also mean virtual changes don't affect reality, because it says may. It doesn't say virtual changes affect reality. And I think that's also very important. Also, I think that's something we could also measure artworks on. Do they actually change something? Also the whole debate of collectivism, like when people come back into their computers, and instead of going outside and actually changing things, that they just think it's important enough or that it's enough to change something in the virtual world and not really go outside and change something. So I think it's very it can be read from multiple perspectives, really.
Yes. Yeah. How do you measure the success of something? Is it how much it influences it? Is it how much money you make from it? Is it how many clicks or attention it got? Yeah. Going back to the app, where does the YouTube name Trixi? So the name of the video is Testing Trixi, and Trixi is the fake YouTuber name, but the app is called DealWithIt. So where does the YouTube name Trixi come from? And why did you name the app DealWithIt?
Also there. These things not always come from a clear statement or that I want to communicate something very clear, but it comes from many questions that I have, and then kind of this develops. And I think Trixi because I use tricks, right? Like the whole app is a trick. It's a trick to do something very, very violent, to speak about something very violent. Not only the the colonial horror that I speak about, but also for other people, it also seems very violent to just erase that thing. But what I do is I use a virtual trick to erase it. You know, like
Yes.
without doing any harm in a way, even so it might be that what I actually want, that this thing is destroyed. I'm using a trick, a trick, because I empower myself to do something that I'm not actually able to do. Like, it's very hard for me to actually destroy this, but so I construct something around, and I use a trick. That is kind of where Trixi, I think, came from. And deal with it is really to say, um, everything you do with this monument is a way to deal with it. Like, everything is already, so to just leave it like it is already that you deal with it. And I think it's very important because it stands around. There have been many debates around it since it exists, but nothing happens. So I really also, because I made the film for this one monument. You know, I made the whole fictional app for this one monument because I want to speak about this one monument which hasn't been dealt with. So I think it's very important to find a step and to actually do something, to actually change it. And that is why this app can do much further steps. And that's, I think, I mean, this may be not clear, but the app gives me the opportunity to deal with it, which I would like to have, that that someone would deal with this monument. You know, that's not yeah, to do something about it. That's what I mean with dealing with it.
Yeah, and after hearing you explain it, I also kind of imagine also the deal with it in a question mark. Like, do we have to deal with something like this? Can we not just change the way monuments are approached and taken care of, and not having to deal with such a monument in public space?
Yes, true.
Yeah. So okay. And talking about text and titles, you have a short sentence in the video on the signs next to the monument, and I understood that it is actually, in a way, dealing with it or referencing the problematic history on the monuments. Can you maybe expand a bit on what the signs say?
Yes, it's not so easy. It's not so easy to summarize, actually, but I will try a little bit. There are two. Also, we see it maybe a little bit on the screen. There are like two signs. We see it, two signs actually, not only one. So the sign, which kind of was there to contextualize the monument, basically only says young generations don't know anything about the past and about colonialism, and this monument, as it stands here, does not represent the colonial times or something like this. Like, it's really hard for me to translate because it's written in a very, I don't know how to say, like, unclear way in German. So I always say, like, this monument is something that has been sometimes positioned here in the past, but it doesn't stand for the for how we actually stand towards the topic of colonialism or something like this. It's really complex. It does a lot of the other sign, just to mention, is about a project which has been done by pupils from school, like school students, I think in 2004 or something, like very, very long time ago, where they also did some projects with this monument, and this plate kind of talks about this. But back to the other plate, I think it's really crazy that there is no positioning at all. It just says, like, young generation don't understand, and also kind of telling us as if the colonial time would just be over, and all of this is kind of history, and young people just don't understand the history. Even so clearly, this is left there by older people who now speak to, like, they don't know what they're speaking about, but now they're saying the young people don't know. That's why we had to put a sign, and that sign says, that this monument has nothing to do with our position towards the topic. It's a little bit too complex, but it doesn't contextualize it at all. Like, it doesn't contextualize the the colonialism, or who put this thing there, for what reason was this thing put there, you know, like very important things. Not that I would ever argue that a sign is enough, but if you do a sign, then please do it like real, you know, like critical, to put someone who's critic towards this, and not this blah blah blah. It was, yeah, doesn't matter. The sign doesn't say much. I talked too long around a sign that actually doesn't say anything.
Okay. I mean, it is such a large and important discussion how to approach problematic monuments. If they should be removed or stay in place, contextualized, or when there's an attempt like this that actually is perhaps not working, or actually, I think it's not working at all from your description. In this video, you make your stance on this clear, on how you want to approach problematic monuments. Can you please go into detail why you take this position?
Mm, I just read before we met. I read an article from Ulrike Bergermann, and also, yeah, also another article. I it's always been said that these memorials have like a value, like a historic value or something, which they really, really don't have at all. They don't have any value, and I think it's very important to think about why are these. What was the purpose for these things to be put in public space? The purpose back then in 1925 was clearly, that's also why they put it right next to a youth playground, kind of, because they wanted always not playground, it's like a sports field, because they wanted to put it there to always remember that Germany has the right to always reconquer former colonies. They put it there to justify the horror that German people and German soldiers did in the colonies, and it was made kind of by like a club of former colony soldiers, and it was a very important right wing. Like a very radical right-wing step back then to put these things there, and it got celebrated very much by the Nazis, which then later took over the whole lot of Germany. So it was really it was meant as a propaganda poster. It's basically a propaganda poster, which just seems like it's big and important because it's made out of stone and it's big and it's not easy to remove, but actually it's very, very easy to remove. You know, buildings get always removed, everything gets removed, but this thing that where a few private people decided to put this big stone there cannot be removed. You know, I think that's very, very ridiculous, because houses get removed, everything gets removed, but this political statement, which it wasn't a democratic decision or anything. It was just some people had money, not even lots of money. It wasn't even expensive, so they could build this big stone there, and now it's still standing there as no one can ever take it away.
Hmm. Were there other attempts, other than the signs, to remove the monument or to handle it differently?
You mean in the past?
Yes.
Yes, yes, there were a few. I cannot all name them, but there was something in the 90s where they wanted to remove it. I told you in the talk before, but also there were the Green Party wanted in the 90s, also in the 90s, wanted to make a counter monument on the other side because it's on the street, right? On a very, very important street. I don't know if will speak about this or not, but on the other side, they put this other huge, they wanted to put another monument conquering it. Also, there are other attempts that I think are very important. For example, graffiti attacks. Graffiti attacks saying this is horrible bullshit. Why is this in public space? Because most people don't even know what this thing even means. Like, so there were kind of these attacks. And the student group I was talking about before, where also they put a sign up. They also did something like they also put like a blanket over it, you know, kind of hiding it. So there were a few, and maybe I didn't mention all of them, but there were a few attempts.
Wow, okay. Could you imagine doing a video like this with another monument? Because there are actually so many problematic monuments, not only in Germany, but all over.
What I can imagine is that people maybe see my video and they think it's a nice way to do these things, and then they can just, they can just do the same thing. But I think I always say I try to look into my own bin for the problems that I have, not to go around and look for the problems. I see the problems right in front of me, so I kind of deal with the things in my surrounding. But if I would be in another place, and in Brunswick there are other monuments that I have done a lot of research about, and I'm very often thinking about them. Also monuments which are still there from the National Socialist regime and stuff like this. So I could imagine, like, I'm always in my artistic practice, I'm trying, and I'm saying this very often, but I'm trying to find tools which I can then use. Because now I'm still studying, right? So I'm trying to find tools to articulate myself to certain problems. And I think this, for example, to make a review or to create an app or to make a review about an app, these are tools that I could imagine to use again, basically, yes. But also I can also encourage other people to do it. Like, it's not,
So is that what you say to people who take this app idea seriously? Could you imagine deal with it also in reality?
I don't know. I'm thinking, of course, I've got this question asked very often with different approaches. Some people say, like, oh, it would be so nice if this app would exist, like an app where I kind of like to maybe to summarize, an application where I can kind of deal with monuments in public space via augmented reality or something, that I can really change something on the monument. Or what also I like a lot in this application is like one function where you can put in your own information. So virtually you have like a pool of information, like a cloud on top of the monument, where you can put additional informations, also counteracting the monument, things like this. It could be very interesting, but it was not my intention to create this really. Like, it's because also the problems that I mentioned before, this be aware virtual changes may affect reality. I think we really have to change the actual things, and not find ways in virtuality that we don't have to see them anymore, for example. Or I don't know if this app really raises. I know that there's a very nice app now in Berlin, which kind of puts contextualizing information on certain monuments and stuff like this. So I think this can be very, very, very powerful tool, and to raise maybe awareness what these things are actually about and so on. But this was really not my intention. My intention was really to find a way to find questions, and to also put my finger at the government in this town, that they have to change something about this monument.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned also in the narration how this monument has been a source of disquiet for you since you moved to Braunschweig, and it became known to you. With the artistic challenge you set before this monument, and all such others, and the subtle critique of a government that allows such a monument to stay, and with the completion of this video, did this disquiet change for you?
I don't think so, actually. As I said before in the beginning of our talk, I think it's also important, like, especially if you take topics or words like colonialism in your mouth and whatever. I think you really have to do something which has an actual impact and actual change, and not just, I don't know, using it for your own benefits or using it to sound smart or something. I think uh, decolonization, for example, as a word, as also many people say it, like I'm now just basically referring to other people. If you use the word decolonizing, it's really about decolonizing, which means stop the murderer. Like, it's really about something very horrible to finally stop, and not theorizing and internationalizing and whatever. It's really about, first of all, stopping the exploitation. And this, and I know that with this work, and I knew it before as well, I will not make this thing be removed, right? I always knew that this thing will be still there when I finish my film. So I feel like it's not enough. But what I do like is when I researched about this monument, I saw very, very people over the decades. Always I saw different people who already tried to approach this monument, to try to do something against it. And I kind of feel like it's nice for me to align with these people, to finally create a force, also like in another time frame, not seeing time always as something which has like ending yesterday or something, that time has kind of be more parallel, that we all constantly working on this thing to be not normalized, that this thing is not supposed to be there. It can go on a graveyard or on a museum, or maybe destroyed. It doesn't have to be there. And I think that's where I feel like, where I see my position. When now the next people do research about the monument, then they see, oh, there was someone else who also strongly disagreed, and then I hope that this kind of adds up. Like maybe it's very, I don't know, very optimistic, or yeah, or maybe utopian, but I like then this creates a force which makes it go, because at the end it's about that, to be honest. Like, of course, also one little thing I want to add, it's not only about this one monument, even so it is very, very much only about this monument. It's also about the broader questions, how to deal with these monuments, what can we do with them. So I kind of hope to also create a wider questioning of these monuments, or possibilities how people could deal with them. That is also something that I want to approach. So it's not only about destroying this monument, it is also, but also more to discuss and to have questions and to ask more questions. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thought, and it's important to be optimistic when dealing with subjects like these, because it's yeah. I think on this note, we can invite or give a chance to our viewers to comment or to ask any questions that they would have for you for testing Trixi. I'm kind of wondering if you had the chance to meet any of these people who before you were engaging with a monument or trying to get it removed. And with engaging the monument, I mean either way, fighting for it to stay or fighting for the removal as well.
Good question. I have to think. Yes, I met them, but not in physical space. Also because I did it, I don't know when I did it, last year in, I don't know, April or something, or March. So it was already, like, it was when Corona just started, so everyone was very, very scared. But I did research also before that, and I met them in books. I met them, but I met them in a library, in an article somewhere, in something, or I met them during my research. I met their positions, but I didn't meet them. I think I don't want to say anything wrong, but I don't think I met them in physical space. I mean, it sounds now like there were always thousands of people protesting against it, which is not true. Like, there are little voices, but they are voices. You just have to look for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is a political position often a starting point of a project for you?
I think I am a very I think I am a very social human being, which walks around, which also does art, and therefore it is not so much that I that I do theorize about a topic or something. It's more that I, as I said before, also, right, that I see things in my surrounding, and and that I have I don't know, maybe I have my political glasses often on, and I very I very struggle with this world a lot. So I have these struggling glasses on a lot, and then I see very, very horrible things what I think are not visible enough. So I try to somehow create an attention using methods which are usually used by industries, or by by visual industries. That's why I like to work so often with advertisement aesthetics or something, to kind of take the tools which are very, very visual, to speak about things which I have the feeling are not visible at all. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we actually have a question from Mutter Zwiebel. Do you also feel like there are prominent buildings people live and work in that are geschützt, that's protected, and carry a lot of dark history, just like monuments, and that shouldn't be there?
Uh,
So not
I
only
don't.
monuments, but buildings as well.
Yeah, I completely understood the question. To be honest, most of the time I haven't thought about it. I can clearly say, I mean, I think it's very important to make it very present and to always have the context within with the future of the building. So it is very important. And I mean, I personally think that the Homeworld Forum to rebuild, that's not about destroying. It's about rebuilding a former uh, Prussian king castle to put in the colonial goods which were there before. I think that's very horrible, and I don't know now where it stands. If I would say, okay, we have to destroy it, but certainly not use it as it's used at the moment. So I think yes, and I mean, buildings get destroyed all the time, right? Also political buildings, like
Yes.
but I don't know. Like I think it's really important to think about the context. For example, if we speak about the HBK Braunschweig, I know that the building has been used also during the NS regime, and that there were like very important, like a clothing factory or something inside of it. And I think it's incredible that these things are not transparent. Nowhere is a sign. I
I
think,
didn't
like,
know
first of
that.
all, yeah, nobody knows, and it's crazy, and I think that's very horrible, that, and
Yes.
this really can't be it. It should be not only visible, but I think then the building also has the duty to take care of these things. I don't know how to say, like, also to take care of the future. If you have a huge building which used to be a factory for weapons, and now you just make a fancy brand art space and not taking the responsibility of what this means, then it's problematic. So the history of the building has similar. I mean, I can talk ages also with former colonial buildings. Yeah, they're big palaces or something, and I think you might not have to need to destroy them, but at least take it as your mission.
Yes.
If you are in this building, to do opposite work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a step to taking responsibility, I think, for the future and also for the past as well. And to answer your question, Mutterzwiebel, perhaps also on my side, I can think of a few examples from my um, one of the places I grew up in, Haifa, Israel, where you have historical buildings with problematic histories that are now lived in by Jewish people and weren't originally belonging to them. And I don't know if they're all geschützt in a governmental way, but they're definitely seen as a part of a heritage and historical. So definitely, um, I think also in Germany, also outside of Germany, there are examples for that as well. Um,
Yeah, and
Nick,
also to become sorry. Yeah, now you're
yeah,
right. We
I
can
was,
finish, but I think it's just important
yeah,
to say also to be uncomfortable, because these buildings are always so trying to make everything comfortable, and I think it's very important, especially for these buildings, to create a surrounding where it's super not comfortable, because they haven't been comfortable for many times for many people, and so on. So it really has to stick out that there is a problem that all of this was built on, I
mhm,
think.
yes. Um, Nick, I'm curious because you were talking about studying, and I know that you're graduating soon. What are you working on now? What are your plans? I hate this question, but I really I still want to know. What are your plans after graduation? You don't have to answer if it's too personal, but what are you working on now?
Hmm. hmm. I will. I'm working on a few different things, and I have a few nice things coming up, a few exciting things. But what I'm most excited about at the moment is a book that I do with many different authors, where I'm really, really, really excited because the texts that I've gotten so far and that I could read through were so touching and moving and interesting and just really amazing. It is probably one of the best projects that I did so far, because it's so, I can learn so much. And this is a book which will come out probably in a few months. So you can all have a copy. It will also be probably for free. And that is something I'm really excited about, because there I have the feeling that my work actually makes sense. And there are other projects which will come up, but yeah, you will all hear from it as soon as it's important, or like as soon as it's important to talk about it, because yeah, I want to ask you to come, or I want to ask you to listen to your opinions and things like this. But first of all, I can mention this book project because that's super cool and there's so nice things in it. Yeah, it's really, really super nice work. I like it so much.
For any of our viewers who haven't had a chance to watch the video that we were talking about, testing Trixi, the video link is in the description. And I'm wondering, Nick, if there's any way for people who are maybe not in our class, or to follow the information on this book, or to know when it's going to be published. Do you have an Instagram account where it will be published on, or a website?
Yeah, I'm still building my website. It's so complex with the website, and
Yes.
it's so how do I say? I think it's very hard that I have to be organized with all of this art stuff. I think doing art is really complex and hard and stressful. But I do have an Instagram account. I try to at least post sometimes something on it, and I try to be informed, and I will inform, of course, over my Instagram also about then the webpage, and maybe also where you can find, because maybe there will be also an online version of the book. I mean, I'm really working on, we are working at the moment to the physical book. Maybe there will be a PDF as well, but also, like, we are very willing to just send the book wherever, so you don't have to live in Germany or something to get the book. And also there are more than only German language Beiträge.
Wonderful.
Articles, yes.
Okay, so I don't see any more comments or questions. And I would like to say a very big thank you, Nick, for this talk today, and to ask if you have any words before we slowly end the talk.
Last words. I have always problems talking about this work, talking about all of this, because it should be something. It should be something very, very uncomfortable, and it's very hard, I notice, because I really like speaking to you. I like to speak with you about the whole project. So it's really hard for me to get very much uncomfortable as it should be. But I mean, on the other hand, it was really, really nice speaking to you, and I'm really happy for this chance. And it's you that you took so much time for this, and also to doing all of this work. I really honor, and it's really, really, really cool, and was really interesting speaking with you about this work. And yes, all I can say is big thank you to you, Sarai. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. The first time I watched your film, I thought it was fantastic and so challenging, and I was uncomfortable. And I'm really grateful that through this talk, I learned actually more about the research and the behind the scenes of the video, and grateful for that. Okay, so I wish everybody, all our viewers, and you, Nick, a lovely evening and a wonderful weekend. And goodbye.
Bye bye.